So in this problem, it's find the angle for a vector that has these components. The x component is -1 and the y component is 1.2. So the first thing we want to do is draw a graph, draw a picture. So we do that. Then what we do is we find which quadrant the vector is in. So the x component is negative. So we look at the x-axis, and on this side it's negative, so the x component is going to be right here. And the y component is positive, and that's right here. So the y component is here, and the x component is here. That means the vector has to be here, so I drew it like this. Now, it will usually specify where it wants the angle, but here it says it's said from the x-axis all the way to the vector, so that's your angle. So now what we want to do is we want to find this angle. So how would we approach that? Well, one thing we can do is instead of trying to find this angle, we can find this one and then subtract it from 180, because that's the degrees of half a circle, right? Because a circle is 360, half a circle is 180 from this axis to this axis. So we can find this angle, subtract it from 180, and get this. Okay, so the first thing we can do after that is draw this triangle. So we can start our trig. So we have our vector right here, we have the x component, and how I got this side is just I shifted this y component over here. So that's all I did. Okay, so, and then I just transfer this angle right here to here. So now we can start our trig. Okay, so the side directly opposite is going to be opposite, and then this one's adjacent. So now we look at which trig function to perform. So since we have the numbers for the y component and the x component, because if you go back up here, we have the x and y component. So we can just plug those in for now. So we have those two components. So it's x component and y component. Okay, I just got it from there. And I'm doing opposite over adjacent. So that's going to be tangent. And the other thing is, tangent is for opposite over adjacent to find one of those. But since we have both, to find the angle, we actually have to do the reverse, the inverse. So that's going to be inverse of tangent. That's also called arctangent. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in the numbers. So it's equals opposite over adjacent. So opposite is 1.20 over adjacent, which is -1. So we do the arctangent, and that will equal -50.2. So this will become 50.2. Let's think about this. If we can't really have a negative angle, right? Because we got the answer of -50.2. So every time you get an answer, you have to think about what does this mean, and just try to make sure you have the right units and everything. So if we have a negative angle, that doesn't really exist, so we just make it positive. Because in this angle right here, this angle can't be negative, it has to be positive. So we keep going, and we also ask, is this our answer? And the thing is this our answer? No, it actually isn't. Because the question wanted from the x-axis to the vector. But what we can do is, now since we found that angle of 50.2, we plug that in there. Now we can actually solve for this part. Because since we know that half a circle is 180, we can subtract it from 50.2. Let me just make that clearer. 50.2. And we can make that. And then, so now, since it's 180, the entire 180 minus 50.2, it will get you the angle of 130, which is this part right here. So and then just make sure your calculator is in degrees. We can go back to the problem, make sure that this is what they want. So it's find the angle. Yeah, our answer is in an angle from these components. We used the right components because we labeled the x as -1 and the y as 1.20. We used the right function, inverse, we plugged everything in right, and then we made sure that it's positive. So after everything, it looks good, everything makes sense, and we have the right answer and the right units, so everything's good. So that will 130 degrees will be the final answer. So I hope that helped, and thanks for watching.